we're really lucky to be joined by this up-and-coming author today, and a well-respected ABC journalist who's going to do the interviewing, my sister Emma Renwick. I'm going to hand it over to them, and we'll find out what we find out.
Thank you. Straight on to it, I think. Can you hear me? Okay. Look, thanks. Lots of us are surprised. I'm not, because I know what he's been doing, but a lot of us were surprised that this book just seemed to appear overnight. Can you tell us if that's actually how it happened, Andy?
No. Oh, it's a microphone. No, it didn't. It took years and years and years of study and work and getting up at very early in the morning and staying up very late at night. No, it's in the last 2 years I took it seriously and decided it was something I could maybe finish. And but I've been writing a bit for quite a few years. I had to actually look at the dates on the files, the old files, and I started this one in 2011, so 3 years. So you can do it too. So.
No, I don't have your imagination. I can't do it. But what does it feel like? Kath said giving birth, but what does it feel like to actually hold it in your hand, or see it getting great reviews on Amazon?
Oh, getting great reviews is great, but I want to know who the bastards are who only gave me 4 stars. Really. I'm talking to you later. No, it's great seeing it out there and seeing everyone seems to enjoy it. And if they haven't said anything to me, which is even better. No, it's nice sort of seeing it out there, but it's kind of a lot of self-publishing is a lot of work that you've got to do yourself. So I'm trying to write another one, and I'm sort of struggling to balance the sort of work that I put into both of them because time is limited. So buy lots of books so I can give up working and just do lots of writing.
We will!
The characters are really richly drawn. Are there any autobiographical elements in them?
Yeah, well, I was on the SAS in a former life, and I've got these scars. You can't see them here. I've got these. No, there are sort of lots of things that you come across in life, not necessarily that happen to you, but stories you hear and things you read in the paper. I mean, there are a few things. There's the settings that are local to where we live, so there's lots of things in there, and our local favourite cafes in there, and the bacon and egg rolls that my daughter enjoys the fact that I've mentioned several times, probably too many times. But it's kind of autobiographical, and it sort of started out, I was trying to write something about my parents' retirement village because it seemed very amusing, all the things that went on there and the characters there and stuff. And then I decided that I probably needed to make it a bit more exciting, so I turned it into a thriller. So there are a few snippets of actual experience in there.
I don't know, I think you could have said it all in the retirement home. But I found myself really fond of Billy. Who's your favourite character and why?
Well, I have to say John is my least favourite character. But my favourite, I really like Betty. I really enjoyed doing the research for Betty and writing Betty. But my favourite character is Large, because the villain is always the favourite, because you can do what you want with the villain. And I found myself liking Large far too much, really. And in the end, I found I was making him too nice, because I had to sort of make him a bit nastier in the end. It was sort of an afterthought, because he was turning out to be the hero, really.
That tells us a lot about you. Now, would you read us an excerpt and maybe set the scene first?
Okay. I just happen to have a copy of the book. This is a scene in which Large features, and he is trying to come to terms with a bit of a problem he's had with his importation business. It has to do with guns. So here we go. The water in the swimming pool was perfectly aquamarine and clear as crystal. The cloud had cleared away overnight, and the mid-morning sun reflected a liquid tracery onto the white rendered walls of the house. A slight breeze, sneaking into the garden between the house and the garage, was the only thing moving the surface of the water. A wattlebird hopped busily around in the big grevillea by the fence, Its detailed investigation of each of the spidery flowers was interrupted when Large stepped onto the terrace, naked except for a white towel around his neck, his pale freckled skin stretched tight over solid muscle and fat. The wattlebird flew up into the Davidson's lemon-scented gum as Large dropped his towel on the sun lounge, took 3 strides across the slate paving and sprang into the air. He caught his left knee in both hands and planted an enormous bomb on the unsuspecting pool. The delicate play of reflections on the walls smashed apart in a shower of light and water. The plume of white water displaced by Large seemed to hang in the air, as if unwilling to share the pool with him, until gravity made the choice for it. Large stayed on the bottom, while the surface slapped and slopped at the pool edge, trying to regain its equilibrium. His eyes bulged and stared, and a small stream of silver bubbles leaked out of his nose as he fought the urge to breathe. When he couldn't hold on any longer, he pushed off with his legs, shooting out of the water like a missile from a submarine, sucking in a huge gasp of air and crashing backwards onto the water. He floated on his back with his arms stroking the surface, sucking in air and watching a plane pushing its way into the big clear blue sky over Botany. Large turned over and set out to swim his usual 20 fast laps of the pool. It didn't take long, the pool wasn't that big. When he had finished the laps, he pulled himself out of the water and dried his face on the towel, leaving the rest of his body to drip dry as he lay on the banana lounge. Only 10 minutes in the sun, then he'd go inside. With his fair skin, he was a prime candidate for melanoma. That's what the doctor reckoned. He hadn't decided what to do yet. His gut said, "They're onto you, run for it. Those machine guns cannot mean anything good. Maybe they're setting you up. Maybe they're just seeing how the system works." Either way, if it was the Jacks, he didn't want to be anywhere near the shipment of Glocks. But his head said it was too weird, too untidy a setup. Dennis wasn't supposed to be working that day. He'd only swapped the shifts at the last minute to help a mate out. If he hadn't been there, with the guns would have been found and all hell would have broken loose. No, it made more sense that someone was trying to piggyback on his setup. But he couldn't get past the coincidence, the fact that Dennis wasn't supposed to be working that shift. It was only an accident that he spotted them. Could Dennis be playing his own game? It was possible, but Large doubted it. There was no way to be sure. He could send Jimmy over, but he needed Dennis sweet until the Glocks came through. Conspiracy or cock-up? He usually backed cock-up, but in this case, he was betting a long stretch. The whole mess was doing his fucking head in. They had to get the guns, that was the key. Get the guns and then the deal. Then deal with the pricks who had brought them in. He was completely dry by the time he pulled himself off the lounge and stalked back across the hot stone paving onto the welcome shade of the house. Darlene was having breakfast in the kitchen. She had a piece of toast and Vegemite in one hand while she filled the kettle with the other. "Morning, Darl," Large said, making straight for the fridge. "Morning, Darlene," said, putting the kettle down and turning it on. She finished the piece of toast, looking Large up and down as she licked butter off her fingers. "Are you going to get dressed for breakfast like a normal person?" "I don't need to be looking at your thing while I'm eating." "Yeah, you do. You love it," he said, grinning. She could hardly talk anyway, swanning around the kitchen in a bikini bra and a pair of very skimpy shorts. "Not for breakfast, I don't. Do you want some tea?" "Yeah, thanks," Large said, putting the orange juice, milk and Weet-Bix on the bench before going into the laundry and pulling a pair of shorts and a t-shirt out of the basket of clean clothes. "You know I'm going down to Monique and Tina's place on Saturday, don't you?" Darlene called from the other room. "Yeah," he said, even though he'd forgotten. Monique was Darlene's twin sister. Identical twins, she and Tina ran a little antique business down in Berry. They seemed to do all right at it too. They were dykes, of course, not that Large cared, although it did seem to be a waste. Monique was a stunner, just like her sister. Tina was a bit butch for his taste, but they were a lot of fun, good sense of humour. Large and Darlene spent Christmas with them in Berry each year and always had a good time. Of course, when Large had found out that his new girlfriend had a lesbian twin sister, the obvious thoughts had arisen. But he knew better than to say anything, not if he wanted to keep his balls. "When are you back?" he said, trailing his hand across her buttocks as he crossed the kitchen. "Thursday. Don't worry, there's plenty of food in the freezer, even though you'll just go to the pub every night." Large shrugged, putting his usual 6 Weet-Bix in the bowl and adding milk. Sharon started yapping and scrabbling at the front door just before the doorbell rang. The video screen next to the intercom showed 3 men on the veranda. Lars didn't recognise any of them, but they didn't look like cops. Too many tats. Not that tats meant anything much these days, when every bastard seemed to be inked up from head to toe. He pressed the intercom button. Yes? Looking for Phil Waters. Do I know you? We're friends of Mick Cole. Yeah, what can I do for you? Business. Business. Must be a lot of business, needs 3 of them. Okay, hang on a sec. Mick Cole was a chief, one of his biggest customers. He had some kind of ludicrously pretentious official title in the motorcycle gang hierarchy, but basically he was their armourer. He bought guns from Large, but he usually came himself and alone. Large glanced at Darlene, at all the skin she had on display. You better stay here till I find out what these jokers are after.
That's fantastic. That must be very hard to read in front of all your loved ones, and with also your nephews parroting most words that were interesting to them at your feet. So, talking of hard though, what is the hardest thing about writing a book?
I think making it into a story and then knowing when to stop and to stop fiddling with it and just to leave it and polish it up. The hardest part is the sort of thing of once you say, okay, that's it, that's finished, and then you have to get it ready so other people can actually read it.
And the common theme from everyone that's read it is, it's awesome, when's the next one? And you did mention that you were in that process. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, I'm writing another one at the moment, and I've got about 20,000 words written, of which probably about 10 are usable.
10,000.
10,000. Yeah, 10. Well, give me a break.
I'll think of my own writing.
But I'm still sort of playing around with the story and trying to work the characters in.